Guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Whimsy Stamps. This is the Halloween night. I'm using the stamps. I'm not using the dies, but I did want to show you that they have them. And then I'm using some other kind of like scene builder things. So one of the stamps in here is, it's like this cute little witch looking at a bat, and I knew that I kind of wanted to frame that out. This one's definitely going to be the more beginner friendly, but there is a type of scene for no matter what level you're at. I'm just tracing out that die. This one will be the only one that isn't one layer. You could definitely do it as one layer. You would just have to mask the outside of your square before you did your ink blending, but I thought because it just had more impact if I die cut it and then popped it up. So we're going to be creating these three scenes. There is going to be the ink blending with the masking, because that's the super cool thing about this. I'm very excited about this because I didn't know that was a thing. And then we're going to do a little bit of Copic coloring as well. So I did do a couple of different skin tones for my witches and a couple of different things just kind of for the setup. So for this one, the bat looking at the witch is one stamp, and then they have an additional bat. For this one, this cute little witch is kind of like looking back over her shoulder, and I wasn't 100% what I wanted to do with the scene for this one. So I just stamped her down and then kind of set her off to the side, so I could figure out what I wanted her to be looking at. And I do stamp all of mine twice, I should say that. For this one, this cute little witch sitting on the pumpkin, she has kind of the most stamped elements, but she has the kind of like my more normal kind of scene. So here with this witch looking back over her shoulder, I thought it would be really cute if she was looking at a bat, but just for some added interest, I thought it would be cute if she was looking at this little bat that was hanging upside down off like a tree branch. So this one will be our more probably more expert kind of level, just because we're going to be doing some of our own drawing. For this one, we're going to add in the moon so that we have a light source, and then also the bat. But I wanted that other bat too, and here's how I'm going to get it. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp these two down. And I wanted that extra, like the bat that's part of the one looking at the witch, just so I had two different bats. And so in order to do that, I am going to do a little trick with my tape. So I'm going to set this down where obviously I can't stamp the witch because she'll stamp right over top of my other witch. But once I pick her up with my door, I can block that portion of the stamp off. I do this all the time with sentiments. But so I'm just using some low-tack tape to block off the witch part. And then when I ink it up, it's inking the bat. I can remove that tape. And then when I go to stamp, it'll only stamp down the bat. So the really cool thing, I'm erasing that line just so it doesn't get trapped underneath my my ink blending. So the really, really cool thing that I'm trying to show you guys here is they're called No Fuss masks. So if you're a person who loves one layer cards, loves scene cards, but you don't love the fussy cutting, or maybe you don't have the dexterity to do it anymore, like the fine motor skills, I didn't even know Whimsy had these. These are, you get 4 sheets in a package, and the package I think is like $5.99, but they're pre-cut masks. They're like little stickers. So you can just peel them off the sheet and then put them right over top, just like a mask that you would have cut, and then do your ink blending or scene building or whatever. That is wicked cool, because there's a lot of times, especially like when you have more involved, intricate style stamps, that the fussy cutting is like next to impossible to do. So you just kind of do the best you can. But these are already cut out for you. And because I've never used them before, I wanted to see like how far I could stretch them. So this bat that I'm putting on now, because this bat is in all 3 of my cards, I'm going to use this one mask for all 3 of the cards just so I could see how it held up. And so like that's the first one that I did. Any of the other ones, I went ahead and put the masks on, but I knew those two bats were going to have to kind of move. Well, that one's going to move 3 times. But then once I have those masks in place, then I can just go ahead and start in on my technique. I pulled a bunch of pinks, blues, purples for these night skies. And so we're going to use those to kind of set the scene. We're going to start with our kind of beginner level card. And this is, just because it's beginner level doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact, because I think it does. But this is the one where we're just kind of creating a night sky. In order to add more interest, I'm not just going to go with straight blue. I'm going to add in those pinks and purples because I don't have a whole scene that is carrying my imagery. I just have this night sky that I'm kind of creating back behind it. So you know, you can pick other colors, whatever it is that you kind of like. Maybe if you want to do like a blue and a teal, some people do like a lime green for kind of like the northern lights. That's really pretty. A lot of options there, but basically you're just layering colors to create a more dynamic night sky. And then there's some other techniques that we're going to do as well. Here, I'm just trying to build up a little bit of darkness, so that way I do have the contrast for the other techniques that I'm going to do. For the next 2 cards, I am going, bear with me, I'm trying to do 3 cards and fit them into one video, and it's a lot. So I did have to kind of pick and choose. Some of it I did speed up and could leave in as much as possible, and other parts of it I just had to let it go. If you watch my channel, then you know that I try to leave in as much as possible. So here, one of the techniques that I use to kind of create more distant stars, especially when I'm using distress inks, is doing a little spattering with some clean water. Now this is Neenah 80-pound solar white cardstock, so we want to limit how much moisture we put on it. But I also wanted to see, because this is a technique I do all the time, adding the water spatters and the perfect pearls, that's what you see me mixing up here. Because I do this all the time, I wanted to see how the masks held up when there was a little bit of moisture. So I did kind of let them dry just a little bit to make sure I wasn't going to be ripping them, you know, if I got too much moisture on them. I'm happy to report that they did hold up really well. Here I'm being very gingerly with them because of my nail polish. So I'm wearing a dark colored nail polish. This is actually Vixen by Zoya, and it's a really, really good one for fall. But anyway, and my sister was like, is it black? And I was like, no, it's dark red. It's dark, dark red. But so then I'm just kind of removing these and then putting them back on their sticker sheet. Because at this point, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep using them or not. So once I have this done, don't worry about the mess. Like I said, we're going to be die cutting it into a square later on. If you wanted this to be one layer, once again, you would block out that the negative of the square before you started doing your ink blending. So moving on to the next one, I'm going to use both of my bats, and they held up really well, even though they had like that moisture from the ink on top of them. I did use my tweezers just to kind of help me get them into place, but they stuck down, they held, even though I was doing some pretty aggressive ink blending over top of them. They did really good. So the other thing that I am going to do as far as masking is I am going to die cut. Now, normally I like Eclipse masking paper, but I do have trouble die cutting that because it doesn't have a backer. So this particular masking tape does have a backer, and I'm going to die cut the clouds and then this little grass hill. In that die, there are other options. There's like a stitched cloud and some other options for grasses, but this one kind of gave me the most to work with since I was using it for 2 different scenes. So I'm going to use the cloud portion first. And I'm going to put that in place where I want to create my clouds on the horizon. This is a really, really easy way to create a more dynamic scene just by blocking off some areas, because now I'm going to have that dark sky with the contrast of the white clouds and then my green grass. So we're going to create a more dynamic look. This is me doing some really fast ink blending. I'm not this fast. This is sped up. But this one is just going to be all blue. There's no pink and purples here, just all blue. But I am doing it at a diagonal as if the moon is my light source. So you may be saying to yourself, Kelly, Whimsy stamps, I have not seen you use them. Or if you are like ride or die, old school, way back from when I started, you're going to say, I haven't seen you use them for a while. So I used to be on Whimsy Stamps design team back when I first started, like 10 years ago. Well, not when I first started making cards, but when I first started getting jobs. And so they were always really lovely. I ended up leaving them. I think just due to like scheduling constraints and things like that. When I believe when I was getting divorced. So anywho, I've always loved their stuff because it's adorable. They have great scene building imagery, but there is a reason why you're seeing them now. And that is because Whimsy Stamps is based in Punta Gorda, Florida, which means as Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton came through, they just got blasted. And they are doing their very best to keep up with the business end of things. Here, what I'm doing is I'm just using the extra ink left for the Salty Ocean brush to add a little bit of shading to my clouds. And then I'm going to move this same mask up so that I can create my hill. One thing with placement of that is you just want to make sure your grass is taller than the object that's supposed to be sitting on it, so it doesn't look like your little witch on her pumpkin is floating in midair above the grass. You want to make sure that the pumpkin is far enough down into the grass that it makes sense. And then we're going to commence with our wildly fast ink blending. So, anywho, they did lose power. They did have some flooding, things like that. And so they had put out on their social media, on Instagram, which is where I saw it. And probably they have a Facebook too, I would be willing to bet. That they were like, hey, we're doing the best we can, with the shipping times, but we really need your guys, help to kind of stay afloat and pull in some orders. So of course, you guys know I have a heart for small business. I always have. Let's go back to this. So here I'm removing the mask to see our lovely scene. Now these bats have been through it not once, but twice. And they held up really, really well. Very impressed with those no fuss masks. And I can see, how that would be a really helpful for a lot of us. So here, this bat, like the part of the connector point is just his thin little neck, his teeny tiny little neck. So I did notice with that bat when I went to go use it for the third time, when I laid down the head, I went to go adjust the wings and I actually just separated them. So it looks like 3 times is about the max that you can get out of each one, but you have 4 sheets. So that gives you 12 cards that you could be using. So even though it was separated, again, like the stick was not a problem. It held up super well. And I used that cloud and hill, the same one for that. And now we're going to move into the coloring with the alcohol markers. So here, this is the one that is more like the expert level. And I wanted to include this because I didn't want there to be any question about like, where did this tree come from? So, I'm going to be honest. I started by drawing the branch just so I would know where my bat was kind of going to be dangling from. And I am using some warmer markers. I'm using the E30s family that's very, very warm. And the reason that I'm choosing to use such a warm brown is because I'm going right over blue inking. And you're going to be able to see the difference once I bring the trunk down right over that white area. You're going to be like, oof, girl, that's so warm comparative to what the rest of the tree looks like. And I know, but it's okay because we have a fix for that too. So just hang tight. That's color theory is our friend. So here is that swipe. You can see how warm that brown is. This is actually, I think the color is called leather, and it's very, very warm. But so basically I'm just kind of drawing haphazard, kind of branches and twigs. I'm letting the marker kind of skip so that the twigs are a little bit broken, and then I am going over them in the lighter colors to kind of help bulk them up. This particular arrangement looks very awkward because, you have branches that are kind of growing up and out, and then you have this one that's just like straight out holding my bat. So I do play around with this a little bit, kind of adding a little bit more to my tree to help that look a little bit more natural. But you live and you learn. And I'm learning, new things every time that I'm teaching you guys something. So now I know that that's something I just need to make look more organic. For the leaves, I'm not going to go crazy. It is fall. I didn't start messing around with any of the colors of the leaves. I just decided to go with all green and just have them be like a little bit sparse. Like they've lost most of their leaves, but they have a few hanger-oners. Here in Ohio, like we definitely have most of our leaves still, even though it is Halloween. We just haven't lost the majority of them. It's been such weird weather. So anyway, they are they just need some help, and they're small business. I love supporting small businesses. I'm happy to be able to do whatever I can for them, and genuinely, you guys know I don't use products unless I like them. And you can go, if you are here from the beginning, you've seen me use their stamps. But if you want to go back, I mean, it was a long time ago, but they're still there. Them videos are still there. So enjoy. Enjoy old school Kelly. That was a whole lifetime ago. But anyway, if you have, and I know everybody has different crafty budgets, but if you have some dollars in your crafty budget to spend, please consider supporting these smaller businesses that have been affected by the hurricanes. I know I don't work there anymore, but when I was dispatching, they had an emergency response team. Oh, here, it was so quick. Did you see what I just did? What I just did to make it the same shade was I went over the part that was in the white with a blue marker. And so that way they would blend and be the same. So that's the little trick for that, is just knowing that you have to add the blue to the part that's on the white to make it balance out and be the same color as the sky. So I tried picking some colors that are Halloween-ish, but also that would be complementary to the scenes that we're kind of building. And so I ended up going with the most traditional orange and black, but then also adding in some lime green and some purple. Here, I wasn't really loving the way that they were blending on her folds. So I'm using the tip-to-tip method. This isn't something that you see me use a lot, but if you don't have a lot of markers or you're trying to get something in the color families to blend that's really dark, the tip-to-tip method is really, really helpful. And all that means is you're just taking the lighter color and you're touching it to the tip of the darker marker, picking up a little bit of that ink, and then you're blending out your two colors where they meet with that kind of combination color that you have created. But anyway, so when I used to dispatch, they have an emergency response team, and they did go down to, I think they went to Asheville to help, Asheville, North Carolina, to help with their dispatch and everything else, which you know, when you're younger, you have different kind of aspirations. You don't really know where your life is going to take you. But that is one of the things that I kind of do regret, because I really would have liked to have been a part of the emergency response team. And I did look into it because I was dispatching, you know, when I was in my 20s. But it just wasn't something that worked out. And then I got married and I had my children. And so now I'm just not in a point where it would even make sense for me to go. But I am very grateful for those people who do go, as I know that the people who need the help are very grateful for, you know, being able to receive that help. So here I did all of their hats black. You can see that I'm kind of leaving some of the highlights on the wrinkles of the hat. This is going to help give our hat a lot of dimension, like that it's kind of crumply up at the top. And then the same thing for the bats. I'm coloring them black, but I'm using a combination of black and some darker grays. And this is so that we don't lose the detail. We don't want to lose the detail in the bat wings. We don't want to lose the detail in the bat's face or its body. So adding in those shadows, but then really those highlights are what's going to kind of separate everything out. And I do try to always make sure that I'm using my lightest color around their eyes, because typically these are, you know, if we stamp them in black, which I do, then, you know, their eyes are already black and you don't want to lose that detail. You can go in and kind of use a white gel pen to dot those eyes to help them kind of stand out. But that's just something, you know, to keep in mind. Here you can see I'm blending out into my background around my witch, and that's just because I didn't line up my my mask correctly. So I did have a little bit of a gap, but I always fix it by using my markers. The first way, even though we did like more of the expert with the tree level, the shadows for this are pretty simple. And I'm just adding a little shadow underneath her so that she is grounded. And then doing different varying strokes for my grass. I do have whole videos on grasses. This one is like the coloring is pretty much the same. My style of coloring doesn't change much. So when I'm talking about like beginner, intermediate, expert, I'm not speaking about the coloring. I'm talking about the building of the scene. So this one is definitely more of like my go-to style, where it's not too much over the top. A lot of it relies on, you know, masking and other things to create the scene, which you can do. Here, I played around with, you know, how I was going to make her skin tone darker. And originally I just went a couple of shades darker. I didn't love that. And so eventually I ended up going back in with those warmer browns. And I really, really liked that. So I'm doing just her black hair. This one has a little bow in her hair. So some of these things, you know, you're going to have seen before. I'm not going to show you the bats again because we just did. We just did the bats, but I'll show you the moon and things like that. But this one does have a little bit of an expert technique as far as adding the shadows. This one is way more forgiving though, and that's why I put it in the intermediate level, because it doesn't have to be perfect. Shadows are, I mean, they're kind of blobby, right? But by putting them in, it really, really takes your scene up a notch. So if it's something that, maybe try it. Maybe just like stamp something, you know, on just like a scrap piece of paper before you like have built out the whole scene, and get comfortable with kind of drawing the shadow, because really it's just like a blob and you're just trying to mimic the shape of what you're seeing. So anyway, give that a try. It really does like bring up the scenes quite a bit with just that little bit of shadow and like the light source. What were we even talking about? Oh, we were talking about like how you don't know how your life is going to go. So I do have some regrets about not doing the emergency dispatching, but that's okay because I have my babies. Speaking of my babies, it's Halloween. We are We are T minus what, like 30 minutes from go time. We have my in-laws are coming over so that they can see the kids. My ex-husband, we always take Nathan trick-or-treating together, so he'll be on his way over. I think my sister-in-law is coming. I think my sister is coming, though I haven't heard from her, so I'm not 100% sure. And then my parent, because we all live in a commune, right? My sister, my mom, and my dad live in the same development, so we'll see them along the way. So here, if you're nervous about doing your shadows, you don't have to start with your darkest color like I did. You certainly can go in with your lightest color and then build out to your darkest color. That helped me a ton to like build my confidence when I wasn't 100% sure how that they should look. So basically I'm just looking at kind of the roundness of the pumpkin, the point of her shoe. I wanted to include that because that's, you know, the edge of my silhouette. And then the rest of it is basically just a blob. I mean, that's the truth of it because it runs off the page. So once I did her shadow, I went ahead and did all of those flicks for my grasses to blend that in. And then I'm going to go back in and get my bat. Now, this one is a little bit different because our bat is airborne. So our bat shadow is not going to touch our bat like the pumpkin shadow touches the pumpkin because he is airborne. So we have to create that gap in between. And so that's what I'm doing there. And again, just generally mimicking his shape. The eye kind of fills in the rest. So now this is all of them all colored up. I do like to add my shiny details. So I did add some sparkle to where the highlights would be, along the edge of their hat or sparkle to their outfits. I'm also going to add a white gel pen highlight to like the bat wings, to the folds of their hat, to their little outfits. This is something that just is a little bit extra. I stamped my sentiments and I kind of built them out to be a little bit different. But that is all 3 cards. So I hope that you guys will support Whimsy Stamps and any other small businesses that have been affected by the hurricane. I hope this is helpful to you in building out your scenes. If you have any questions, please let me know. As always, I appreciate your time and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.